So this week we decided on the topic. Michael has a friend who's deciding to scale some sales teams and feeling as though he might be the man to do it. But the question that he got asked is, how, as a salesperson, do you decide whether or not this is an offer that you want to work with?
Mm-hmm.
What do those metrics look like?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple of other things that we spoke about as well.
Yep. Yeah. We went into measurable things, tangible things like, show rate and close rate and, disqualifications and what does a bad lead look like and, things like that. But we also went into more of the intuitive things like, the guy behind or the lady behind the offer and how does it feel? And do you want to be associated with that person? Do you trust them? Is the energy right? Things that can't necessarily be marked in an objective way. It's more based on feel and touch and intuition. So, I wanted to bring this up because I got asked this question today and I haven't answered it yet. I'll be answering it on Monday. And secondly, you did a course dedicated to this topic. So I know that you know this at a granular level, which is why I wanted to ask it to you. And I liked your answers.
Yeah. I think the thing that we finished up as well is there are a lot of traps that salespeople, both new and experienced, fall into when they're picking an offer. Maybe it's a savior complex. Maybe they hope that it'll be everything that it needs to be. Mm-hmm. But we unpacked those and gave some really good insights on what to do and what to look out for. But look, I hope you enjoy it.
See you soon. Yeah. So, James, I had a long, in-depth conversation today with an offer owner, and we might do something together. We might not. I don't know. It's early days, but here's where I'm going with this. He asked me a question as an offer owner speaking to a sales guy who's potentially going to send some of the people I've trained his way to work on his account if it all lines up. His question to me was, Michael, what metrics would you and your sales guys be looking for and judging me on so I can think about that and get it across to you for your evaluation? Now, the conversation ended early. We're going to pick it up again next week. But I thought two things. I need to get clear in my mind on how to answer that. I have an intuitive response to it, but I know it won't be as methodical and thought out as you will, because I know you've done a short course on this topic. So that's my question to you. If someone comes to you, James, and says, hey, I'm an offer owner, I need to put together a brief because some really high-level sales guys are going to have a look at it. What should I include in it? So they should get a pretty good feel and read on whether I'm worthy of their consideration or not. Where do you start? How do you look at that? I know you've got a course on it, so we won't go hyper granular on the how, but as a start point, what are you thinking about and what are you looking for as a start point?
So I'll talk about some of the best offer owners I have spoken to in this conversation. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I say is just be accurate with your data. Mm-hmm. Because if you make things up, if you say 25%, 50%, 75%, if it's ever a round number like that, it's just going to set off red flags for anyone that's experienced. So what I would say in that situation is be real about your earning potential. And it's not, if we get a little bit more granular on that, show the actual numbers. Mm-hmm. So you might not have the best guess of what the numbers are, mm-hmm. but if you have a really good salesperson in front of you, they're going to ask you, what was the revenue for the past couple of months?
Yep.
Most of the time it's the past 4 to 6 months, because we want to see if it's consistent. And you want to see what each of the people in the team closed and why it was that. So if you want a really good performer, they're not going to be looking at what the bottom person in the team closed. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're going to be looking at what the top 2 to 3 people closed, because that's what they're going to be gunning for. Because if either of us join a team, we're not joining to be number 2. And then you can just pull apart the numbers. So of that, so say for example, Michael was on a team and he did 50K last month. Mm-hmm. How did he make 50K? Mm-hmm. How many calls were booked in? How many of those calls showed? Mm-hmm. And of those calls, how many were disqualified pretty early because they weren't a fit or any reason like that? Mm-hmm. And then of those that weren't disqualified or were considered a bad fit. Now, bad fit's a little bit of a subjective one. Mm-hmm.
What do you mean when you say bad fit? Based on your definition, what do you generally mean when you say bad fit?
A bad fit means either they don't have a problem that we can solve, or there is no way that they could buy, even if they desperately wanted to.
Yep.
The reason I say it's subjective.
Generally financially based?
Financially or timing.
Okay.
So if they want to do a mastermind that starts immediately and runs for 8 weeks, but they're about to go to Zimbabwe for 3 months, it's probably not going to work.
Yep.
Yeah. So but the reason I say that's subjective is you'll get some salespeople that can't close them and they just mark them as bad fit. So you want to see how many calls were booked, how many showed, how many of those were disqualified for legitimate reasons, because the top performers don't usually have a high bad fit rate. And then on the back of that, how many of those that showed closed, the average revenue of cash collected per sale, and then the average sale price. And the reason that I say cash collected is a lot of the time you'll have these offers that say 30K per month earning potential, but when you pull it apart, you actually look at the cash collected, and it was a 10K offer. They collected $500, and then they have 70 to 80% default rate in the second month. So the salesperson doesn't get any of that. So the payment terms as well is a big one. So if we get nitty gritty on financials, the money has to be there as a start point. And if you're advertising an offer, get clear on what that is and advertise this is the legitimate earning potential. And the reason I say that is even if it's a 10 to 12K per month opportunity, but not super high volume, you might get a legit salesperson who said, hell, yeah, I'll take 10 hours a week for that. Absolutely. I'll make it available in these times. Whereas if you say 30K per month opportunity and then you wade through 150 people, you will disqualify a lot of the really good ones because you weren't accurate with your data.
Got it.
So that's the nitty gritty on the numbers. Now, obviously there are more that we can add in. But the biggest thing, and I don't know, you'll probably agree with me, the biggest thing is how the offer is run. As in, is it going to be micromanagement? Are you going to create an ecosystem where high performers can excel and actually want to be part of that ecosystem?
So let's unpack that then. What does a high performance ecosystem look like that a top performer sort of with the same sort of mindset and values that you and I have, because that's who we know, so we'll speak from experience. Like, what are they looking for? What accept, what will they not accept?
The one thing I need to point out before I say this is you need to be in check with what your ability actually is.
Comes back
because the times in my life where I've thought I have been phenomenal, untouchable, have been the times where I could have been better. So I'm very aware of what my abilities are, what my strengths are, and where I need to be. So for me, if I'm looking at an offer and they have a sales manager, no worries at all. We'll be best friends. We'll get along like a house on fire. But I don't, and I won't be micromanaged. And I'm not going to go to daily huddles and waste an hour of my day every day to what do you say, sing Kumbaya and stand and clap and all of that sort of stuff. The best teams I've been in, and not even a close second, they didn't have a sales manager. They had a sales support, as in a gopher, who there might be 5 or 6 really good salespeople on that team. And then there's a gopher in the chat and you can say, Tim, I need this. Tim, need this contract amended. Tim, not sure where I can find this resource. And they are just on it. And what that does is instead of getting really good salespeople and trying to force them into a mold, you allow them to excel, be the best version of themselves possible, and have a mechanism for support if they need it.
Yep. Makes sense.
What do you think?
I agree. Look, I think one of the things I look for early at the start is I'm always, because I'm not interested in full time. Like, I'm not interested in any of these roles that are like, full time, not negotiable, 40 hours a week, will fill your calendar. Like, I'm not interested in anything that looks like that. So that's one of the first things I'm looking for, And if it is full time, is that negotiable? Is that fixed, or is it open to being flexible for the right candidate who meets the criteria? If it's not, then I'll, outside of a unicorn type offer, I'll put a line through it. So I'm looking for that early. I'm looking for the who. I'm looking for who's the guru figure here, or who's the owner, or what's going on there. I'm not necessarily looking for measurables. I'm sort of going more into intuition and feel. Do I like this person's energy? Do I like their vibe? Do they look like someone I want to be associated with? I think I'd get along with this person. Would I respect this person? Would I be proud to work under their offer? Have the association. I'm looking at things like that. A lot of that's intuition and feel. So that comes up really early for me, really, really early. Similar assessment of the numbers as to what you said. But I guess I'm yes, it's important what they're doing, the present and the recent past. But I'm a little bit of an optimist, and I always think I'll do better than whatever they're doing anyway. So like, I'm always take it with a grain of salt. 'Cause I'm always like, whatever the numbers are, I'm going to do better. So I'm sort of factoring that in as well. So I don't get too hung up on the numbers right now. Because I've always had my best success, even in the gyms, when you and I first met, going into ecosystems, either in the real world or in the online world, where the essential ingredients were there, the offer, the product market fit, the location, the facility, whatever. But there was even the offer I'm on now that's still selling for. But for some reason, there was some sales marketing component that was missing or underperforming. And on getting that right, like the whole thing just flourished. So I'm always looking for that, which is why I'm not entirely fixated on their present numbers. I mean, I do want to see them, but what I more want to do is look at them and look at everything else and go, I think we can go to a whole nother level here. And I'm pretty sure I can be the guy to make that happen. So I've got that narrative running in my mind at all times too.
I just have to add an asterisk to that.
Go.
You have done this a lot. You have the ability to see what something can be. Hope is not a unit of measurement. And I've seen very, very few, as in maybe 2 to 3 people go into an offer and genuinely make it into everything that they wish it could be or hope it could be. But I have seen well over 100 people I know personally try and do this in the past 4 or so years. And they get in there and they just get frustrated, burnt out, and disengaged with the offer, disengaged with the industry. These offers suck. They aren't this, they aren't that. And that's the reason I say you need to assess what the numbers are right now, because as a starting point, it has to be good. And you can't hope that it'll be something. You are unique in that sense.
Your advice is exponentially more applicable to the vast majority of people that will watch this podcast. But you know me and you've seen what I've done and all that. I'm talking about my lived experience. I'm making it about me for a second. When I'm looking at an offer and opportunity, that's how I assess it. But if I were to
How do you assess if the owner's okay with that? Because I love the structure. I'm in it now, scaling, setting things up, websites, channels, podcasts, like marketing systems, sales systems, everything. I love that mayhem. But the key ingredient to all of that is doing it with an offer owner that is receptive to it. So how do you...
I kind of like it when the offer owner gives me the keys and says, just make it work. If you think back to the gym back in the day, there was a version of that going on. It was getting less and less by the time you came in, but that's another story. But, prior to your arrival, I basically got given the keys every year. Like, just do your thing, and in other online offers in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had an equivalent of that. And I've managed to make it work. I'm not saying it's a 100% success rate, but enough that I'm chasing those sorts of opportunities. It's just congruent with my personality and how I like to work. You and I have big differences. Like we talked about this on an earlier podcast. You're way more structured, more process orientated, more systematized, more methodical, all that stuff. I'm probably a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more maybe agile on my feet, sort of create where we're going, whereas you're really good at perfecting and making something hum. We have differences. So we're going to look at it through a different lens and look at different opportunities. I'm also, 15 years older than you as well. So I've got different experiences to what you've had too. So, your advice that you gave earlier is way more applicable to the majority of viewers here. And if I was speaking to a student, I would give advice similar to what you gave. I was just making it about me for a second. What lens do I look at it through?
Yeah. A lot of it does fall back to the owners as well, how they like to operate, what they want to do. And are they actually, what's the inverse of this? Are they delusional in their goals? And I think there are some people, you meet them and you realize it doesn't matter what you do. This is going to be exceptional because everything you touch is going to turn to gold. And then you have people you meet and sometimes you're wrong, but sometimes you think, I believe you believe that. But I just can't see it. And I think going into that, you have to, if you are going to have any sense of I'm going to help them turn this around, you have to believe they are that guy, that they are that person, and that it's not riding the coattails. You are going to amplify that person, and they're going to allow that to happen, because at the end of the day, and this is a thing that I say to people that try and change other offers, it is their world. You're just living in it.
That's right. That's right. And that's a really good point you make. A lot of people, and I can think of some students I've had in the past and some people that you and I know, no names, but I know that a lot of people usually with good intent. It's not that they are coming in with, malintent. With good intent, they come in as a commissions only sales guy, but because they were once a copywriter or they're really good at, I don't know, TikTok or whatever, they seem to think, and maybe sometimes this works out, but they seem to think that because they were once a copywriter or they're really good at this or that they have a platform and an invitation from the offer owner to start telling them how to run their business, like completely outside the jurisdiction of closing. Now, every now and then it's well received, but very often it's not well received. And if you're also not performing at the same time, look, if you're performing like a king, well, maybe you've got leverage to start talking about other things. But if you're not making a lot of sales, which is why they brought you in, and it's what they see you as. They see you as a gun-for-hire closer, and all of a sudden you're telling them how to run their business, and they should change this, and their marketing's bad here, and they're like, I didn't bring you in to tell me how to run my business, and you're just a closer who, by the way, isn't closing. Like, that pretty much never ends well. So I've had countless conversations with people like that over recent years. I've seen it too.
But that also comes down to the delivery. So I've had these conversations with offer owners in the past where their ads, their copy, none of it is aligned. So that prospect journey that they have to go on, they just feel like they're being thrown side to side as they come through the funnel in the sales process.
Yes.
So the conversation that I've had over time is I collect the data. This is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing on calls. Now I know this is what you've got at the moment, but would you be open to a conversation about some ideas that I might have had? And if you deliver it, sorry?
No, I agree, but there's probably three key differences in your example right now. Like, I agree with what you're saying, and I agree that you can do that. There's probably three key differences. Firstly, you would be performing as a salesperson, and the example I gave, they weren't. Secondly, they would have seen when you came in, you were more than just a salesperson. Based on the way you carry yourself and the way you handle the interview and what you've done and what you can do and what you probably talked about. So you already had positioned yourself probably coming in as more than just a closer, more like a strategic partner, or advisor, or whatever you want to call it. And thirdly, you know how to have those conversations. The 48 Laws of Power is a great book for those that haven't read it. And law number 1 is never outshine the master. So you know how to have a conversation with the owner that doesn't result in him losing face or being humiliated or patronized if you suggest something to him and he agrees with it. You know how to do that. The examples I was giving, none of those three factors would have been in play. They probably weren't performing as a salesperson. They probably didn't know how to have a conversation with an offer owner, and they didn't come in with a positioning of anything other than just a gun-for-hire closer. So I totally agree that you can do it, but most comms-only sales guys probably can't and probably shouldn't. Most, not all.
It comes back to the vehicle that you choose. You can either choose a fixer-upper that you hope will be good, or you can choose something that runs quite well, and decide that that's what you're going to be using. I think for the vast majority, the second option is better. Pick something that's already working, an ecosystem that you can exist in. And I think everybody gets this idea that I'm going to hop on an offer and I'm going to help them this and I'm going to help them that. It's not as easy and straightforward as you think. And most of the time, off owners, they don't want it because they've just dealt with 15 people over the last few years and everyone had a great idea on what to do. But I will say this. Now, I saw a post a couple of days ago, and it was by an offer owner. And now I know for a fact that this guy has just a rotating door of salespeople. He treats them really poorly. His way is the only way, and he's just churned through everyone. And he did a post, and it was basically said, it's hilarious when salespeople who have never run an offer come in and decide that they have ideas on how you should run yours. Now, I nearly commented on this, and I thought, no, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my monkeys, not my circus, whatever the saying is. And if there was ever a red flag just waving in the air
Mm.
of the kind of offer you don't want to work with, that is it. Someone that publicly puts down their team because they're going out of their way to try and help this person that can't get their head out of their own ass.
Yeah. That would be massive flag for me too.
Massive red flag.
Yep.
So there are offer owners out there that feel like that. So if you're hopping on hoping that they're going to be the one that will be receptive, again, I think that's something that you need to clarify at the start.
Yep. Yeah. There's 3 categories of offers. You touched on 2 of them. I'd add one more, which is a brand new offer, unproven, brand new, start from scratch. I think the vast majority of people should go for the second option that you gave, where the machine is already working and they just effectively want another custodian. That doesn't mean there's not space to make it better, but the machine is pretty much already working. They want another warm body to come in and keep this machine humming. For the majority of people, they'll probably find happiness and, an appropriately lucrative return going into that world. I personally like the fixer-uppers, and I like that let's start it from scratch because there's more upside, and I feel that I can imprint more of my sort of...
I'm going to add something to this. Every time you've chosen someone who had the ability and also already had the status.
Yes.
And the reason that I add that in, so what's happened in the industry the last couple of years is there are whole coaching programs now, you probably know who I'm talking about, who will find a problem, they'll turn on the marketing machine, they'll bring in a sales manager, and they'll, whether or not they just replicate someone else's offer as well. And the whole purpose of this offer is not to build something that's going to stand the test of time. The whole purpose of this offer is I need to buy a house and I need to make a 500K in 2 months. They'll take the jigsaw puzzle that they've done in all of these other places. They'll apply that framework to this, bring in a fake guru, they'll bring in a really good marketing team, then they'll bring in some salespeople, some closers for an offer that's scaling fast. This is going to be the next big thing, make you 50K per month. You have to work 15 hours a day to do it. And then everyone's excited, like this is the next big thing. And then they make their money and they realize that the front end sales from ads are not working as much anymore. Their ROAS is nowhere near as high. Then they dump that and then they do it again. So that's what's happened to a lot of our industry. So the caveat is both times or every time you've done it, you haven't just picked someone like, oh, this looks like it's scaling fast. You've researched this person. Whoa, they've been in the room with all of these people. And as soon as someone shines a little bit of a light on them, this is going to take off.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I said earlier about the fundamental pieces are there. They're just missing some sales and marketing magic for whatever reason. So maybe they are a credible guru. Maybe they have an audience, or ideally a combination of both. I can see they're serious and they're committed. Didn't just arrive yesterday. And the offer looks solid, but they just haven't got the right marketing and strategy and sales strategy there. And I can be a part of that. There's really high chance that we can make this work. All the times I've done it successfully, it's never been somebody with zero track record. There was just a missing ingredient somewhere in the sales and marketing pie, and I was part of the solution there, given the keys. So I like that, but I would say I'm in the minority that would either like it or want that or be able to do it. Most people.
Adding on to this, the advice that I give most people at the moment is you need to pick an offer that has stood the test of time. Something that's been around for a period of time, something that didn't pop up in the last few months. Ideally, something that's at that 4 to 5 year mark, which is a century in the high ticket space to have lasted that long.
That's pre-COVID.
That's pre-COVID.
Like that's a long time ago. Everyone I know's life is so different pre and post-COVID. Myself included.
And if they've kept up, that's phenomenal. But the other thing you'll notice with a lot of those offers is they're not well run. They're very poorly run. They don't have the team. They don't have the direction. They don't have the strategy. So if you hop into something that has been around for a period of time, that is still making sales, and they are receptive to people that might have a little bit of a different way of doing things. Again, you have to articulate this in the conversation with them before you start. I think that's the winning horse. Something that has momentum, and you just hop on and then accelerate that further.
Sure. For the majority of people, that would be the case. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I agree. Cool. Have we given enough to the audience to think about, do you think?
Yeah, I like this one. This was a good one.
Cool. Well, I hope, hope there's value and some insights. And as always, it's good that we've got a few differing points of view.
Perfect. Well, you enjoy the week, and I'll see you next
You
week.
too. See you next week, James.